هذا رمضان شهر صفاء الروح فيه الإحسان والأنوار تدور هذا رمضان.
Okay, let's move to the second section in this chapter. We are in the chapter of fasting. This is section number 2, conditions for the validity of fasting Ramadan. The author, rahimahullah, said the conditions for the validity of fasting are 4. What are they? 1, Islam. So it's not valid from a blasphemer. We do not order a non-Muslim person to fast. We ask him to embrace Islam first. So Islam is the first condition. It's not valid from a blasphemer. 2, sanity. So it's not valid from an insane person. The fast of an insane person is invalid. 3, purity from menses and the like. So it is not valid from a menstruating or postpartum bleeding woman. So as we know, a woman who has a menses period or postpartum bleeding, she is prohibited from fasting. It's haram. She's not allowed. She's prohibited from fasting. Even if she felt that she's fine, she's comfortable, she's healthy, she can do it, she's not allowed to fast. Now, if the blood stopped, let's say, 1 minute or seconds before the dawn, before Fajr, before the dawn breaks, meaning her menses period finished before the Fajr breaks, she has to intend and fast the next day, even if she did not make the full body wash. Number 4, knowing about the time being valid for fasting Ramadan. Knowing about the time being valid for fasting Ramadan. What does it mean? Let me read all this point and then I will explain. The author, rahimahullah, said fasting is invalid on the day where it is doubted whether it is a day from Sha'ban or Ramadan. This day is the 30th day of Sha'ban when a cause of doubt is established, such as for a rumor of the crescent being sighted was spread while no one testified before the judge about it. So, knowing about the time, as he mentioned, knowing about the time being valid for fasting Ramadan is a condition for the validity of fasting. That is a condition. What does it mean? It means fasting the day that is called Yawm al-Shak, the day of the doubt, is not allowed. That is not allowed. That is called Yawm al-Shak. The day of the doubt is the 30th of Sha'ban, where it is doubted whether it is a day from Sha'ban or Ramadan. How could this happen? So what is the example? What's the picture of this matter, of this mas'ala? So it happens when a cause of doubt is established, such as what he mentioned, such as a rumor of the crescent being sighted was spread, and none of the upright Muslims saw the crescent. But let's say, for example, kids, right, who the judge wouldn't rely on their testimony. Or, for example, ladies were talking that, or major sinners, kids, ladies, or major sinners were talking about seeing the crescent, but no one who is upright testified before the judge that he saw the crescent. So because of that large number speaking about that the crescent has been sighted, but no upright Muslim went to the judge and testified before the judge about seeing the crescent. So this is a cause for what? For the doubt. So that is the day of the doubt. We are not allowed to fast it. It's haram. Because some people might say, oh, look, I'm gonna take the safe side and I'm gonna fast it anyways. No, that's not allowed. That is haram. Fasting the day of the doubt, Yawm al-Shak, is not allowed. However, if we have a case where, for example, people went out and they did the sighting, they observed, and they did not see the crescent, right? Muslims went out, no one saw it. So the next day is what? The next day is the 30th of Sha'ban, for sure. It's not the day of the doubt. That's a different case, right? So if a person, for example, he has to make up a day that he missed he can fast that day because that's the 30th of Sha'ban. It is not Yawm al-Shak, right? These are two different cases. Let's move to section number 3 in this chapter of fasting, section number 3, that is conditions for the obligation of fasting Ramadan. Bismillah. The author rahimahullah said, conditions for the obligation of fasting Ramadan. So for the fasting to be obligatory upon a person, there are 4 conditions that need to be met. 4 conditions, we're going to read them and explain them, inshallah. Number 1, Islam. So, let's continue. So the blasphemer by descent is not addressed with its obligation in the present life, although he is addressed with it for torture in the hereafter. So what does that mean? If we know, for example, if we know someone who is blaspheming by descent, we do not ask him to fast. We ask him to embrace Islam. We do not ask him to fast before embracing Islam, because his fast won't be valid. It is not valid. Number 2, accountability. So it is not obligatory on someone who is not accountable. For example, a person who is non-pubescent. He is, let's say, 7 or 8 lunar years. He is not yet pubescent. Fasting is not obligatory upon him. However, when he reaches 7 lunar years, as we know, it becomes obligatory upon his wali to order him to fast. And fasting is also not obligatory upon the insane. Why? Because he is not accountable. That's number 2. Let's move to number 3. He said the ability to withstand fasting. So it is not obligatory on the one who cannot bear it due to what? He mentioned 2 things, due to sickness or old age. So the one who cannot bear fasting due to sickness or old age, he is not addressed with its obligation. We don't say that it is obligatory upon him to fast. He cannot bear fasting. One example is a person might be suffering from asthma and he needs to use the inhaler, right, to spray some medicine into his mouth several times a day. He has certain condition, health condition, asthma, he needs to use this. So, you know, when he uses the inhaler, for example, there are particles that would go into his cavity. So this is, for example, one condition or one example about sickness, right? This person, he needs to use the inhaler during the day, and we don't say that it is obligatory upon him to fast. Then he said residence. So it is not obligatory on a traveler, except a traveler who initiated his travel after the dawn, Fajr has set in. And so it is not permissible for him to break his fast on that day. So residence is among the conditions for the obligation of the fast. Residence. What does it mean? The traveler is allowed to break his fast except if he initiated his travel, if he started his journey after the dawn breaks, after the dawn has set in. Then in this case, if he initiated his travel, if he started his journey, let's say at 9 a.m., after Fajr, then he is not allowed to break his fast. However, if a person is traveling and he initiated his travel, let's say 3 a.m., and Fajr was around, let's say, 4:30 or 5. So he started his travel before the dawn breaks, he is allowed. He's permitted. It is permissible for him to what? To break his fast on that day. Section number 4 in this chapter, integrals of fasting. Let's start. Bismillah. The author rahimahullah said, the 2 integrals of fasting are the intention of fasting the following day of Ramadan this year. When? At night. What does it mean? The author said at night, that is between sunset and the break of dawn, for every day of the obligatory fast. So the first integral of fasting is what? Is to make the intention, to have the intention in your heart. So the intention, as he mentioned, must be established when? At night. what does at night mean? Any time between sunset and Fajr. Any time between sunset and Fajr, and the dawn. And one, as he mentioned, one needs to have the intention where in his heart. This is the place of the intention. In his heart, one needs to intend to fast the following day of Ramadan this year, and this intention is an obligation for every day of fasting. Every day of fasting, that is according to the school of Al-Imam Al-Shafi'i. Number 2, what's the second integral? Let's read. 2, abandoning anything that breaks the fast, such as the insertion of any entity into the body cavity through an open inlet. That is the second integral of fasting, to abandon anything that breaks the fast, such as, he gave several examples. We started with the first one. Anything that goes into one's body cavity, meaning anything that goes inside the stomach, right, or the head from an open inlet, then this breaks the fast. What are the open inlets? Mouth, the nose, the ear, and the front and private and the back private parts. These are 5 open inlets. Anything that goes through an open inlet to the cavity of the body, whether the stomach or the head, it breaks the fast. It invalidates the fast. 2, and sexual intercourse also. Sexual intercourse invalidates the fast. 3, masturbation that causes ejaculation. Also this invalidates the fast. Then he continues to mention other things. Swallowing one's saliva that is contaminated with a filthy, najis substance. How could this happen? A person might be suffering from, let's say he's bleeding. His gum is bleeding, and he swallowed the saliva that is mixed with this najasa, with the blood. This invalidates the fast. Okay? طيب. Then he said, or saliva that was changed by something pure mixed with it. What does that mean? Also, let's mention an example. If a person, let's say he drank coffee before Fajr, let's say 30 minutes, 45 minutes before Fajr, and after Fajr breaks, he swallowed the saliva, and he found out that the saliva was mixed with coffee. He did not rinse his mouth, he did not wash his mouth thoroughly, and he swallowed the coffee. When? After Fajr. This invalidates his fast. That's the meaning of, or saliva that was changed by something pure, not najis, something pure mixed with it, mixed with the saliva. Now, the author said, while one is remembering, so doing any of these things while he is remembering, right? Meaning not forgetting that one is fasting, because if he did this while forgetting that he's fasting, that's a different case. We're speaking about the case where he is remembering that he is fasting and he's willing, he's not forced. He's not under the threat of being killed, for example. One is threatening him to be killed, or he's telling him, you eat or I will kill you. Not speaking about this case. We're speaking about a person that he did any of these willing, not forced, and aware of its prohibition. So not an ignorant person. Like who? He gave an example. The author said, like a person who recently embraced Islam, or a person who lives far away from knowledgeable people. Such a person does not invalidate his fast by doing something that would normally break it. So if a person embraced Islam recently and he never heard of these invalidators that we just mentioned, right? And he did any of them, his fast remains valid. The author, rahimahullah, continues to say, it is obligatory to immediately make up the fast for whomever invalidates his fasting on a day of Ramadan in transgression. That is, what's the meaning of in transgression? That is without a valid excuse, without an excuse. However, if one breaks the fast for an excuse, then one must make it up before the next Ramadan comes. So if one, he mentioned 2 cases here. If one invalidates, the first one, if one invalidates his fasting deliberately, without a valid excuse, or let's say if one chose not to fast one of Ramadan days, right? Without a valid excuse, the author said, he has to make it up immediately. That is, immediately after the day of Eid, because it's prohibited, it's haram. We are not allowed to fast on the day of Eid. Immediately meaning right after the day of Eid. That's number one. However, he mentioned the second case. We have the case where if one has an excuse, a valid excuse, such as, like who? Such as a lady who did not fast due to her menstruation period. She has menses, due to her menses, and she did not fast, let's say, several days, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. Now, the second case, the case of the lady, for example, she has all of the year, but she needs to make them up before next Ramadan. Before next Ramadan. Let's continue. He said, in addition to making it up, it is also an obligation on whomever invalidated his fast in Ramadan by sexual intercourse, where he had no facility to break his fast. There is no excuse, no valid excuse to break his fast, to pay an expiation kaffara. Meaning, if a person, he broke his fast without, he invalidated his fast, he broke it without a valid excuse by doing sexual intercourse, he has to make it up immediately, and there is something addition. That is the kaffara, expiation, right? That's the meaning of this sentence. He said the expiation is to free a Muslim slave clear of any deficiency that inhibits him or inhibits the ability to work. That's one. If unable, then to fast 2 consecutive lunar months. If unable, then to feed 60 poor Muslims, each one a mud. What is a mud? Mentioned between brackets, average sized hands cupped together, just like this, of the most common staple food of the region. Whether it's rice, wheat, common staple food of the region. Now, the last section in this chapter, which is section number 5, Invalidators of Fasting. Bismillah. The author, rahimahullah, said fasting is invalidated by apostasy. That's number 1, committed by the fasting person during the day of fast. What does this mean? This means if a person commits blasphemy during the day of fast, he has to re-embrace Islam immediately by uttering the 2 testifications of faith, and then he needs to refrain from whatever invalidates the fast for the rest of the day, and he has to make this day up. He has to make it up after after Ramadan. Okay, he has to make it up. So we mentioned 3 things here. He committed blasphemy on the day of fast. He has to re-embrace Islam immediately by uttering the 2 testifications of faith. Number 2, he remains refraining from all the invalidators of fasting for the rest of the day, and he has to make this day up. Number 2, menstruation, postpartum bleeding, childbirth of a fasting woman. So, if a lady is fasting and she has her menses or postpartum bleeding during the day, her fast is invalidated. Likewise, childbirth, same thing, same judgment applies. Then he said insanity, even for a moment during the day of fast. I'm going to read the whole text now until the end of the slide, because the explanation of this paragraph is in the next slide in a diagram, in an easier way. So, he said, and fainting, loss of consciousness, and losing one's sanity due to drunkenness that was a result of transgression, like if he consumed something intoxicating intentionally before Fajr, and so he lost his mind due to it after Fajr. This judgment applies if the fainting and the drunkenness take up the entire day of fast. That is, from the moment Fajr sets in until the disk of the sun sets below the horizon. One's fast is not invalidated if one fainted or got drunk and lost his mind by what he consumed before Fajr for part of the day, or even most of the day, then he woke up. the explanation of all what I just read here in this slide. Look, please look with me at the screen. So we have three cases: fainting, insanity, and sleeping, right? Case number one, he said if fainting happens all of the day, then this invalidates the fast. If fainting happens part of the day, it does not invalidate the fast. Okay? Now, similar to the case of fainting is the case where one loses his mind, his sanity, due to drunkenness that was a result of transgression, where, for example, a person before the Fajr comes in, before the Fajr breaks, he drank something that he knows it would make him lose his mind, his sanity. So he drank, and then Fajr breaks. Fajr comes in, and then after Fajr, it resulted in him losing his mind, his sanity. Now, same judgment applies. If it was for all of the day, it invalidates the fast. If it was for part of the day, it does not invalidate the fast. That's case number one. Case number two, insanity. If it was for all of the day, it invalidates the fast. Same thing, if it was for part of the day, also it invalidates the fast. Even if it happens for one moment, also it invalidates the fast. The third case, sleeping. Whether it's for all of the day or part of the day, it does not invalidate the fast.
هذا رمضان شهر صفاء الروح فيه الإحسان والأنوار تجري